Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy and welcome back to The Last Lap. In today's video we have a lot of action to unpack from this weekend in Fontana from the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Cup Series. But before we hop into it, I just want to remind you guys to hit that subscribe button and that like button. It really does go a long way, helps us out a bunch. So if you do that, it would be greatly appreciated. And as always, I have to introduce my friend and co-host Matthew, who is joining me on the show as always. And man, we have a lot to unpack. There was a lot of action at Fontana this weekend. This was the first normal race for the next-gen car, and we're going to talk about how that performed and everything. So what do you briefly have to say before we hop into everything?
Well, what a race we just saw today. That was, man, I got no words. I mean, I was surprised how memorable this race was for me compared to all the past Fontana races from over the years, which I don't really remember much of those besides a couple finishes. But man, that was a crazy race. But first and foremost, how you doing today, Jimmy? You doing good? I just want to make sure you're good before we get things started right here. I want to make sure you're good.
You can just worry about yourself and how your driver did today. That's all I'll say about that. But, yeah, it was quite the day for both of our drivers, to say the least. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. Firstly, we have to cover the Xfinity race, which was on Saturday. And, man, this was a good race, too. There were several cautions. Trevor Bayne was in it for most of the day. It was mostly between him and Cole Custer, who honestly came out of nowhere. I didn't even know he was racing, and he ended up, him and Trevor Bayne were going at it for most of the race. This race went to 3 overtimes, and the big story was that Anthony Alfredo came down for tires before the overtimes even started, and came from like 15th or 20th place up to the front row of the final overtime restart to have a chance to try and win this thing. During the second overtime, Brandon Jones spun off of turn 4 and hit the barrels on pit road, at the entrance of pit road. So I'm very glad that those barrels were there, because if not, that would have been Mark Martin 2012 all over again, with that car almost getting split in half. So good thing those sand barrels were there. That took forever to clean up. And they never showed a replay, but Cole Custer was probably super close to taking the white flag and ending the race under caution, but the caution flag came out before the Cole Custer took the white flag. But anyways, it took 3 overtimes to decide it. Cole Custer ended up getting the win. It was cool to see him win. I didn't even know he was racing in this race, like I said earlier, but it was cool to see him win. He was the dominant car of the race. He deserved to win, so very cool to see him get it done. But Matthew, what do you have to quickly say about the Xfinity race before we hop into the Cup race?
Well, for the Xfinity race, nothing really happened much except Cole Custer dominating the race, and then at the end it started getting a little bit crazy. But I mean, it's great to see Cole Custer win again. I know the Cup Series he's struggling a little bit, but this is also a big deal for the team that he was showing for, which wasn't Stewart-Haas Racing. It was actually a smaller team called SS Greenlight Racing, I think it's called, in which Joe Graf Jr. normally drives that 07 car. And they have an alliance with Stewart-Haas. So basically, what Cole Custer had was basically a second Stewart-Haas Xfinity car, but all the credit goes to that small team. So I think that's huge for that small team, as they're pretty much getting the credit for this win. So that's great for them. And other than that, it was pretty much Cole Custer dominating this race. But I really thought Alfredo had a shot there, especially those fresh tires. But I think that red flag really hurt his chances there, cooled them all down. So, but still a great run for him, as he got top 5 out of it.
Alright, so now we're going to talk about the big race on Sunday. And before I hop into the recap, there were 12 cautions for this race, which is tied for the most cautions at this track. And that was for a 500-mile race. Today was a 400-mile race, so 100 miles less, and it tied the most cautions for this race at this track. So that was a pretty crazy stat right there that I saw. But hopping into the race, several big names even had issues before the race even started in practice and qualifying. Several drivers spun out in turns 3 and 4. Chase Elliott, Eric Almirola, Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski. Several drivers spun out in practice and qualifying, which is it was a sign going into the race today that we might get a lot more of that today, and we did. So starting the race off, Tyler Reddick and Eric Jones were the two drivers at the front of the field for honestly most of this race. It was quite surprising to see them up there. Well, Tyler Reddick we kind of expected to be good here, but Eric Jones surprised, I think, everybody in the field today by having a good run for most of the race. But Kyle Busch ended up spinning on lap 16. Chase Elliott scraped the wall on lap 33. Kyle Busch pitted shortly after he spun because there was a problem with the car overheating, so he pitted. Chase Elliott spun shortly after that because when he hit the wall in turns 3 and 4, that caused damage, and he ended up spinning a few laps later. But at the end of stage 1, it was Tyler Reddick on top, and Eric Jones finished second in that stage. And then the struggles for Kyle Busch will continue. He had a flat tire on lap 87. No caution for that. They ended up keep going green. Christopher Bell spun on lap 91. And by this point, Chase Elliott was 2 laps down. He was able to get back on the lead lap at that point. Chris Buescher spun. He had a flat tire. Brad Keselowski spun on lap 117. Most of these are single-car incidents, by the way, that I'm listing so far. When Kyle Busch spun, it was a single-car thing. When Chase spun, it was a single-car thing. So a lot of single-car spins at this point, which was honestly expected going into this race, like I said earlier. But at the end of stage 2, Tyler Reddick would win that stage as well, and Eric Jones would finish second. So they finished 1-2 in both of those stages, which is incredible for both of those teams, especially Eric Jones in that newly allianced Petty GMS Motorsports. So it was really great to see him finish second in both of those stages. Stage 3 is when things get even more intense because the favorite of the race at this point, Tyler Reddick, he blew a tire going into turn 1, and he was coasting up against, I don't think he was riding the wall, but he was riding the high line through the turns 1 and 2, and William Byron out of nowhere gets loose and slides and runs into Tyler Reddick and door slams him, and that ends pretty much both of their days. Byron's car was done, and Reddick had some axle problems or suspension problems in the back of his car, and he couldn't continue either. Well, he might have been able to continue, but he wasn't competitive anymore. So that was a really tough blow for Tyler Reddick. He was easily the most dominant car of this race, and it was really unfortunate to see him blow a tire and get taken out of the race. It was a big crash coming off of turn 2, another one. Bubba Wallace got into Brad Keselowski, and that sent Brad around, and that Harrison Burton was involved. The nose of his car is pretty much done. That's a tough start to the 2022 season for him, getting involved in 2 straight wrecks. Cindric was involved as well, but I think he just barely brushed the wall. Let's see, what else? Sorry, this is a lot of stuff I have written down for this race. Ross Chastain, he spun with 29 laps left. Alex Bowman got into the wall. And at this point, after after Tyler Reddick went out, Kyle Larson started to make a charge towards the front of the field, and so did some of the other Hendrick cars. Bowman got up there. Chase Elliott rebounded a little bit as well. And also, the Toyotas were having some type of overheating problem because just about every one of them had to come down pit road at some point and raise the hood and put like a leaf blower in there to blow the inside of the car to get some, I guess it was sand or some loose dirt pebbles or rocks or something out of there, because apparently that's what was causing their cars to overheat. So almost every Toyota had to come down pit road at some point for that. I know Kyle Busch did, Christopher Bell did, Bubba did, I think Kurt did too. So a lot of the Toyotas had overheating issues, which is weird. Hopefully they get that figured out between now and Las Vegas. But there was, after that Chastain spin, there was a restart. I think all 3 Hendrick cars were in the top 5 at that point, and Alex Bowman got into the wall coming off of turn 4, but he was able to keep going. It wasn't a caution. And Joey Logano and Kyle Larson were battling side by side going down the front stretch, and Chase Elliott was coming up behind Kyle Larson. I thought he was going to push him and let him, push him by and get Larson clear of Logano, but Chase decides to go 3 wide all the way at the top of the racetrack. Kyle Larson went up. They made contact. Chase Elliott bounced into the wall, and that just re-aggravated what was wrong in his car earlier. After he got into the wall, Chase would drop like a rock. He would eventually spin out, and at that point, it was Kyle Larson and Joey Logano's time to shine. At that point, Chase ended up spinning with 9 to go. I think they made contact with around 11 or 12 laps to go at that point, so Chase a few laps for the suspension or whatever was wrong on that car to end up giving out and causing him to spin. That would set up a restart with 4 laps to go. Kyle Larson and Daniel Suarez were on the front row of his final restart, and Austin Dillon was up there. He restarted 3rd. Joey Logano restarted 4th. So a lot of not big names that we usually see came up to the front at this point in the race, which is very cool to see. We saw Tyler Reddick obviously leading this race earlier. We saw Eric Jones up there. Suarez coming up there late. Dillon coming up there late. A lot of names we don't usually see, which is really good to show that the next-gen car is working as far as, making things more equal and giving these lower-funded teams a chance to compete. Anyways, the restart with 4 laps to go. Joey Logano gave Kyle Larson a big shove and got him in front. But Daniel Suarez, he made a fight back on the bottom and ended up taking the lead at one point. Daniel Suarez was leading this race with, I believe, 2 laps to go. And Kyle Larson got a big run off of turn 4 and ended up swooping right by Suarez using the high line. Swooped down, got in front of him, got back up, and Kyle Larson ended up driving away and securing the win. His second win at this racetrack, his first win this season. And obviously, as a Chase Elliott fan, I'm a bit disappointed in what happened with him and Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson claims he didn't see Chase Elliott there, and I honestly kind of believe him, because the way he went up to... So him and Logano were side drafting, and Larson went up the track, I think, to try and arc the corner and run the high line, and I honestly don't think he saw Chase Elliott there, and they made contact. It looks like he went up to try and block Chase Elliott, but I honestly think Kyle Larson went up the racetrack to try and get the high line going into turn 1. I think. That's my opinion. I'm not, I'm frustrated, but I'm not mad at Kyle Larson by any means. They're Hendrick teammates. Larson wouldn't do that on purpose. So I'm not mad at Kyle Larson. I'm just upset with the outcome, because Chase Elliott got the bad end of the stick and finished like 25th. But Kyle Larson gets the win. A lot of not so big names finished in the top 10, which I'll give in just a minute. But I've done enough talking, so I'm happy to go ahead and give me your thoughts and unpack everything that happened in this Cup race at Fontana.
You sure it's my turn, right? Is it my turn? Alright, I just want to make sure it's my turn. Okay, so I'm going to get this out of the way. It was absolutely shameful of what Toyota brought to Auto Club this weekend. Absolutely shameful to give every single one of those Toyota cars basically duds for engines. I mean, are you serious? Like, you basically cost all the Toyotas a chance for a good finish, or maybe for a win, because you couldn't build basically build an engine good enough to keep debris out compared to the Chevys or the Fords, because they didn't have any issues. So I'm not really happy with Toyota and their engines right now. They better get it straight for next weekend, or we're gonna start firing some people over there. But other than that, somehow, some way, Kyle Busch was able to get back on the lead lap and finish 14th on the lead lap, which was a miracle after the day he had today. But man, I love this next gen car. I just love what I saw today. There were so many great things I saw. I mean, the only issue that still is happening is when a car spins out, you can't drive it because you can't. The bottom of the cars are so flat, like you can't move. So, but NASCAR, from what they say, are aware of it, and they're trying to make a solution to it. So, as soon as they take care of that problem, everything will be fine. Because the other concern was the loose wheels, but we didn't see any of those in this race, so it looks like they got that problem solved. So, other than that problem, I think they've gotten everything else right. I mean, I loved what I saw. The amazing side-by-side racing, how hard these cars were able to drive. We saw a bunch of spins, which is a good thing because it's supposed to be hard to drive. It's not supposed to be easy to drive, aka the 550 package. So it is great to see. It is so relieving to see that basically. Another thing that I've been loving with this next gen car is the parity. Having these small teams being able to competitive. You have the same cars. Now it's all about the driver that you put in that car. Who has the talent now? We saw some of that today. Tyler Reddick is one of them. Now, people might not say Tyler Reddick, but I'm saying that because RCR over the years has become a more, basically like a borderline top 10, top 15 team from the Gen 6 era. Now, also Dillon had a good run today, but Tyler Reddick dominated this race, and I feel so bad for Tyler Reddick because he swept both stages, led the most laps. Nobody could compete him, and then he blows a tire. I mean, that's nothing he could do. I mean that's Auto Club right there. Auto Club is notorious with his old surface and tires wearing out, and that's what happened. I guess the tire really wore out and it blew a tire, so that's just really unfortunate. I cannot wait to see how he does the next race because if he had that good speed at Auto Club, I want to see how he does at Vegas. So I can't wait to see how he does there. Another driver, Eric Jones for Petty GMS. Who would have thought that a Petty team, which over the years who had Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace, Eric Almirola, who were notorious for being a top 20, top 25 team, they were contending for the win. They were leading laps. I mean, who would have thought that would happen? And that's all because of this new car. I mean, if it was a Gen 6 car, there was no way we would see Eric Jones up there contending for the win. So I'm so happy that that car has lived up to that, seeing that small team being able to compete there. Putting a talented driver in Eric Jones as well, which helps as well. Let's see. Another Daniel Suarez. He was around top 10 area most of the time, but late in the race he basically was contending for the win. Amazing run for Trackhouse, and Ross Chastain was also up there as well until he spun out. But besides that, he was able to be around the top 10 as well. Another guy that led some laps, Chase Briscoe. I mean, I know that's Stewart-Haas Racing, but SHR last year was absolutely terrible. So I think it was great to see a younger driver and Chase Briscoe being up there leading laps. We also saw Cole Custer also up there in the top 5, top 10 area for some time today. So, and Michael McDowell was even in the top 10 a little bit at some point. So that part I'm excited to see because now you got the same car. It's all about who you put in that seat. Do they have the talent, or are they just a paid driver who's just there to pay all the sponsor bills? So I can't wait to see how Eric Jones does next weekend. I can't wait to see how Suarez does next weekend. I can't wait to see the other two Stewart-Haas cars, and I want to see if anyone else steps up at Vegas, like maybe Michael McDowell, maybe Bubba Wallace. So I can't wait to see if any more of these small teams able to make these big leaps. And let's see. Man, so much happened today. I'm trying to process what just happened because so much happened. The side-by-side racing was amazing to see. I mean, that 550 package, you can't do that. I mean, you'll have just stalled once you get the bumper. These guys were able to get the runs, whether from the below side, the middle side, the high side. Get that big run from if someone was behind them and pass them with ease. That was refreshing to see, and I love it. Now, I want to get to the part everyone's talking about here. The whole Elliott Larson. Oh, man, that was funny. That reminded me of what Darrell Waltrip said one time. That's a teammate. And that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, I know it was pretty much an accident. I mean, Larson was just trying to get that run on the high side, and I guess, I don't know if the spotter did the spotter tell him that Chase was there, or he did not? I don't know. He just went on the high and put Chase in the wall. So, I mean, that was a total accident. And then And then it was a little weird seeing Chase Elliott spin out there, which, are you sure his arm was getting a little tired there? I mean, NASCAR might have to look at that one. Looks a little fishy, but other than that, Lord, even if Chase did that on purpose or not, Larson still was able to hang on to win. But man, impressive run by Suarez, man, at the end. I thought Suarez was gonna had it won as soon as he passed him. All he had to do was take Larson's line away, but Suarez made a little mistake there, went to the low side sin. That gave Larson a huge run. And that pretty much just gave the win to Larson there. So that was an impressive run by Suarez either way. So, and Eric Jones. So wow. Even with all that parity, Larson still wins somehow. So Larson is back in victory lane, only the second race in, so that's not good for the competition. So, well, yeah, other than that, other than the whole, flat tire, can't move part that I know NASCAR will fix in the coming weeks or maybe next weekend, other than that, this race blew my expectations. I did not know it was going to be this good, but it turned out to be one of the best Fontana races I've seen in a while. I mean, it's been a long time since... we haven't seen that much action on Fontana race since like 2009, so it was refreshing to see that track basically get its groove back, basically.
Yeah, I think, obviously we have to give all the props in the world to NASCAR for the next-gen car, but we also need to give props to them for the package. This is the first, the Clash was the first race with the package officially, but, that was an exhibition race and everything. This is the first full-fledged 670 horsepower race, a full event, and I think the package was great, with the 670 horsepower and the 4-inch spoiler and all of that. I think it was, a really great performance. Like you said, drivers were up and down all over the racetrack, 3, 4, 5 wide at one point. You could pass on the bottom, you could pass on the top, you could get runs down the straightaways, make aggressive moves, all kinds of stuff. So as much as we deserve to give NASCAR props for the next-gen car, we need to also give them props for the package, because I think the package worked very good as well. As for the whole next-gen car thing in general, like you said, the whole thing with the tires is a bit frustrating because there were several drivers who spun out on their own in practice, qualifying, and during the race, where all they did was spin out and their tires would go flat and then they couldn't drive the car back to pit road. You basically, when you spun, you had to keep your car moving, or else once your car stopped, you're pretty much done and needed to get towed back to pit road. And Christopher Bell did it and lost 4 laps doing that, so that's definitely a red flag there. Thankfully, NASCAR did say that they noticed it and they're going to address it, hopefully this week. That would be nice if they could address it this week. If anything comes out with how they plan on doing that, we will let you guys know for sure. But yeah, other than that, I think the next-gen car performed great. The composite bodies worked just fine. I'm a little bit nervous about the undercarriage of the cars, though, because when Chase Elliott hit the wall the first time, it knocked something loose in the back end of the car, and, that made him spin the first time, and yes or no made him spin the second time, too. So that's a little bit concerning to me. I like the composite bodies, but, the actual strength of the car itself and the parts of the car is a little bit concerning with how easy parts are breaking and getting messed around and all that kind of stuff, but we'll have to see how that goes the rest of the season. Let me give you guys the top 10 really quick, and then we'll rate this race and get out of here. There's a lot to unpack for this race, but thank you. We appreciate you guys sticking to it. But the top 10 will appear right over here. So Kyle Larson obviously gets the win. Austin Dillon second. Eric Jones third. Daniel Suarez fourth. Great runs for those not underfunded teams, but lower tiered teams. Joey Logano fifth. Eric Almirola sixth. Kevin Harvick seventh. Harvick was in the late to mid 20s for most of this race and found his way inside the top 10. Kurt Busch as well. He started the race at the rear, had to do a pass-through penalty at the start, had a speeding penalty at one point, had some other stuff go wrong, and he rallied back to a top 10 finish, which is insane. Daniel Hamrick, he had some problems early in the race too. He went several laps down. He fought his way back to a top 10 in 9th, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 10th. Also, your boy Kyle Busch rallied back to finish 14th on the lead lap after going 4 or 5 laps down early in the first stage. So I have to give props. I have to give props there to Kyle Busch after coming back from 4 or 5 laps down to finish 14th. That's pretty impressive for him. But that's it for the top 10. We'll go ahead and hop into the ratings. I guess I'll go first. So this is tough because this was a good race, but I don't want to set the bar too high for the rest of the season, because I'm sure we're gonna get a few more races like this down the line, and probably a few better than this too. But for me, I think I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. I think it was a very good debut for the next-gen car with the 670 horsepower package. Obviously, there's a few bugs that need to be addressed with it, but, as part of the whole process, and those will get fixed as the year goes on. The racing was very good. The package was great. Lots of side-by-side racing. Lots of drivers struggling with their cars, spinning out by themselves, which is a good thing. We wanted to see that. The drivers wanted that. They wanted the cars to be harder to drive. So overall, I think it was a very good race, and that's why I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. So, Matthew, what are you going to rate this race?
For me, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. I loved what I saw. I love all the racing, the passing, the harder cars. The harder to drive, basically. And, the only problem, I guess, is just the whole, 4 tires getting flat, can't move problem. But that'll get fixed, since NASCAR already said that they're working on a solution for that. So I don't need to hear any more of these fans here crying about it. Like, good Lord. But anyways, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Amazing race.
Alright, so last thing we're going to do is go over our fantasy very quick, and this was very up and down for both of us and our other friend who we were texting during the race, because we all had Tyler Reddick in our fantasy lineup, and he looked like he was going to win the race, and then boom, flat tire, he's done. So that shook up things very quickly. I actually had Kyle Larson as my backup pick and subbed him in, and he had won the race, so I was like, okay, I'll take it. So points for this race ended up, I had 187, you had 144. As for the actual total of points after this race, I'm not sure, but that'll be in the picture that I put in the video. But I'll still be in the lead at this point. Only 2 races in, though, a long way to go in this season. I like this new fantasy thing. It's fun. It's different. Makes us think a little bit, because we can only use a driver 10 times. So, Matthew, do you have any other closing thoughts before we go ahead and wrap the video up?
Well, I guess I'll wrap it up with this. NASCAR, 4-hour practice. Please, let us adjust our cars. Please. Because we saw all those cars spinning out. 20 minutes is not enough time for all these drivers to learn these new cars, the limits and everything by 20 minutes. We need an hour. So, the qualifying part's fine. I don't really care about that. It's just the practice that drives me nuts, because all other motorsports, like Formula 1, IndyCar, they have as many practice sessions as they want. 3 of them, actually. Meanwhile, NASCAR's too scared to have a full hour practice, so I think they need to change it to just an hour practice. That's not, you gotta have more time to figure out these cars. Thankfully, the race itself, we didn't see a lot of tore up cars, but we did see a lot of tore up cars at practice. So, yeah, they need a full hour practice.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change this season, because NASCAR already set in stone that most races are going to have just that 15-minute warm-up session and qualifying right after that. And they can't really make adjustments to the cars either. That's another thing, so I would like to see that changed as well.
Just get more drivers to complain about it, then they'll change it. That's what they did with the qualifying format a couple years ago.
Yeah, several drivers on national TV, said that 15 minutes isn't enough time to get used to the car. So hopefully NASCAR will listen to them as well. Hey, the new Drivers Advisory Council, they could do something about it. I don't know if that would work or not, but that could be something that they try to fix. But that's definitely not a good sign. We would like to see a little bit more practice, so drivers could get used to these new next-gen race cars. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this video. We hope you guys enjoyed it. A little bit of a long video, but there was a lot of really good stuff to talk about. Very good race from Fontana.
At this point, we're going to have
stay
long
tuned.
videos for every race.
We might have long videos for every race review because of all the action that's happened. But we hope you guys enjoy this video. Stay tuned to our social media and all of that for further updates. But until next time, we'll see you guys in our next video.